I have a lot of people. I know some couple of people who run business in this kind of space.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do it. They just because of the next question I'm going to be asking you, because you are first of all focused on social impact, not profit. How do you balance that against cash flow? You need to pay your staff. You can't tell your staff stories. You need to pay people. You have payroll, you have overheads.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? How do you balance that?
With great difficulty and sometimes not. I think, and again, over the years, because we've had so many ups and downs, we've had to change so many times. There's been times where, we've had to let people go. There's been times where we have had to, take out grants or loan funding to be able to do what we need to do. There are times where there hasn't been enough money and I've had to put money in myself. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that behind a lot of successful businesses, actually, there's a bit of financial privilege there as well. So for me, for example, being able to, um, in the very early days, I sold my flat to be able to take some money to put in to cover wages and some equipment and whatnot. But not everybody has the ability to do that. Not everybody has the means to do it. And I think sometimes people look at successful businesses and they think, oh, but why haven't I been able to do that? Quite often there's hidden privileges at play. And we've still got a lot of debt. We're not necessarily, kind of out of the woods in terms of, if we can break even every month just now, that's great. But it's really, really hard. And I think I guess a lot of it is as well as how you approach it. Like I always try and be really transparent about, finances when it comes to staff. In the past, I think people have not liked that because they don't want to know if it's not going
Oh, really?
well.
They
But
just like to be,
some
they don't want to know.
Well, I think it depends. I think some people want to know. I think some people don't want to know. Um, and I've probably not always handled things as I should have in the past as well, because again, you're learning and you're growing. And you don't really know what you're doing. I never really set out to be a boss. I don't really like the thought of being a boss. I never really want to be a boss. I think being a boss and being a leader are two different things. But when you're a small company though, you kind of have to wear all those hats at the
Yeah.
same time.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think for anybody that's kind of starting out and thinking about like that balance of the, cash flow, because you've got social impact and you've got a business thing, it's really, really difficult. But I think sometimes for me, it's thinking about, when you look at a cash flow and you've got like income and outcome, and it's usually split up into different things. It can be really helpful to think about, trading income and social impact income as two different things, because it helps you better recognize what's making you a loss and what's actually making you money. If you kind of just have everything in together, it can be harder to see. And I think if you're socially driven as well, the stuff you want to push through with is usually the stuff that's making you a loss. And if it's not clear in black and white, it can be easy to say, oh no, but that's fine. That, we do these workshops, we do these events, but that's, but sometimes you do have to kind of be brutally honest with yourself and say, actually, though, can we keep doing that? And I think it's really common as well for most social enterprises to not always be business and social impact. Sometimes you have to be business that and you're not delivering any social impact. We've gone through periods like that. We're only just getting back to a point where our social impact's kind of balancing out again. But then there's time where your social impact is going to be really high, like, especially early stages. But the business is not
Exactly.
necessarily bringing much in. And so it fluctuates. And I think it's, I think with anything, knowing places to ask for help and support before things go bad is good. To be able to help pinpoint those things. Because if you can predict and see rocky weather ahead,
Mm,
you can better
prepare.
predict and prepare for it. Yeah.
So, I love the way you are doing your uh, business and social impact. How do you measure success?
I mean, I think success means a different thing for different people, doesn't it? And I think for us, a lot of what we have been doing over the last few years hasn't been about growth as such. It's been about balancing out, and it's been about reshaping the company from being, this print and embroidery company that everybody had grown to know us for so long into something completely different. And I think with that, it becomes um, for us, success is still being here.
Yeah.
And so
Still keeping the door open.
still keeping the door open. And I think sometimes it's not that I don't think people should aim high, everybody should have goals, but I think sometimes we set those goals a little too high, and it can be really disappointing when we don't reach them. For a lot of people right now, given the economy, just keeping the doors open and balancing things out, that's good. And I think for some people, they think, oh no, well, I'm not successful because we're not bringing in loads of profit and we're not able to do that project. It's like, no, it's hard. It's really, really hard just now. Keeping the doors open, that is success at the moment. Obviously, everybody would love to be a little bit higher with what they're doing, but
Thank you so much for sharing that. So from what I've learned now, keeping the door open, being able to do the day-to-day operations sometimes is the success we are looking for.
yeah.
Okay, because I'm asking that because the metrics you are going to be using to measure a proper business, another a business will be different from what we will use to measure your own.
Yeah.
For a normal business, we can check the balance sheets, check the management account, and say, oh, we are not doing anything. What's going on? But for you, I think because I'm thinking about what you just said, the fact that you sold your flats to do this. I was wondering, are you Mother Teresa? What's going on here?
No, definitely not. I think for me, I definitely have I think because I have financial privilege and I'm by no means like, super wealthy or anything like that. But I think for me, I do have I think it's like a kind of sense of social responsibility to use. Maybe it's kind of like redistribution of wealth to an extent, but not necessarily. It's kind of like using what you have to be able to create opportunities for other people. And again, there's definitely been periods where we've not had much social impact because we've not been able to do the things that we set out to do. But I think in the long term, if I've been able to create something that has helped other people get that leg up and to be able to get started, and even if it's just a couple of one-to-ones with somebody that's really helped them with a business plan or helped them apply for funding, like for me that is kind of just what I want to do. For me, it doesn't feel like showing up to work every day. For me, it's just kind of more like this is my life and this is my lifestyle. And so yeah, the financial privilege side of it, like I think I kind of try and like work it into conversations as early as possible, because I think it's important for people to know that that's part of it. For a lot of businesses, there has been a leg up. So for me, how can I use that leg up to kind of pull the next person up behind me, kind of thing?
That's so thoughtful of you. That's still the Mother Teresa's. So, probably during the early stage, what would you say has been a big financial mistake you made while starting?
Okay. I don't think we made our biggest financial mistake probably until we got some funding. We got some. Well, it was this loan that we got, this social investment from First Port, and it would have been great.
And now you have to spend this money.
Well, it was, we basically we got £85,000 in social investment, and the idea was we would hire a salesperson,
Okay.
and we would increase our sales,
Okay.
and we would kind of shift a bit of the focus onto kind of corporate workwear and things like that. It just didn't work.
How long did the salesperson have to stay and collect salary without?
It was about 5 months, and we realized actually it's just not happening. Now, this is not. I don't think this was down to a specific person or whatnot. But when we got that social investment, I think we got it maybe in like the January, and then the cost of living crisis first became like mainstream news issue in the kind of May, April period. So not necessarily like a blame situation or anything like that. It was just circumstances. And yeah, it just didn't work. And that happens sometimes. Nobody's got a crystal ball. If there was a playbook that you could read that was like, okay, follow these steps and you'll be successful, the world would look very differently. But some things just don't go to plan. And so we lost a lot of money from kind of pushing through. And then probably on my end, my mistake in that situation was probably not being aware of or kind of ignoring red flags too early on and pushing things, because at the time, you've got staff that have livelihoods and there's a cost of living crisis. Nobody wants to sack somebody, but I'm sure some people do. But I don't want to have to let people go at a time that's already terrifying when it's harder to get
need a
jobs.
lot of money, then had to now make the hard decision. Maybe probably if you've done maybe the second month, everybody would have gone away.
Yeah.
Be able to save some money. Yeah.
But but again, that's part of the journey. Sometimes losing money is part of the journey. Sometimes, making money is part of the journey. But yeah, it's funny because I don't necessarily, mistakes is the correct word to use, but I don't necessarily see mistakes as inherently negative. Because we're all human. We all,
Definitely.
make mistakes, and it is part of life. And I think if we dwell on it too much, we don't learn from it as much. But if we kind of see them in a positive way, and it's hard. Sometimes you have, you have to allow yourself to grieve in the moment when something goes tragically wrong. Like, so you have to allow yourself that. But for me, I try and, like, as soon as I can, switch into that. Okay,
That's happened.
what are we going to do now? So what's next? What have I learned from this? What don't I want to happen again? And that's what I try and do. I'm sure there's things that I haven't learned from, but there we go. Yeah.
The next question will be sort of a twin. So, do you find it hard to get investment now as a social impact company, or is it harder now, or is it easier now?
I think it's harder now for startups. So obviously we're at a different stage now than, there's different types of funding for obviously different stages. Um, I think it's harder because there's more competition. I think it's harder because of things like AI,
Easy to apply now.
easy to apply. So there's more applications and the quality of the applications is higher. And again, I'm, dyslexic, so AI, I find it a really beneficial tool. It's about using it correctly. And there's just not as much money in funding pots at the moment. I think there's been so many things that have happened recently that funding has to get diverted into other areas. So I think it's definitely more difficult. It's funny to think about us at the moment though, because when that's me kind of thinking more about startup funding, and we're not a startup at the moment. Sometimes it feels like it when you've had to pivot and pivot and pivot, like you feel like a startup.
I'm used to the startup mode.
Oh yeah, it's still in startup mode, but I think you do reach a certain point, you reach to a certain age as a company where it's like, well, there's not much funding available for you because you surely should have figured it out by now. But actually, a lot of us, because we've had to pivot so much, it's tricky. We've had lots of support over the last couple of years though. So we've just received 20,000 from National Lottery to launch a new project called Emerging Sparks, which is going to be looking at neurodivergent young people and peer support and empowerment. And then we also it was just about a year ago, we had the Postcode Lottery grant. So that was from the players of the People's Postcode Trust. So those have been really instrumental in helping us go through a lot of the changes, develop our new projects, and to be able to relaunch our new space with obviously the big jumbo pivot from a print and embroidery company to back around to co-working and student spaces. But without that funding, it probably would have been impossible or
Very hard.
very, very, very difficult, and most likely probably would have given up, or it would not look the way even close to what it looks like now. So yeah, I would definitely say it's more difficult than it has been in the past, and maybe things will change. I know that the Scottish Government review is kind of coming up in the next year in terms of the aims and kind of goals going forward, particularly for entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. So Who knows? I think you can't like you can't really guess anything at the moment.
Cross your finger and do it. But say, wow,
Yeah.
that's nice. Uh, from our conversation, one of the things that has stood out for me has been the fact that community and community building has been the center of what you have done.
hmm
From the time it was in your room till today, where you have a co-working space. It's been community. How do you build a community that people want to belong to? Because it seems that's one of your North Stars, sort of the things
Yeah.
you do without even thinking about it. How do you do that?
Yeah. I don't know.
You have what's your secret sauce?
Well, I think it's funny because the space that we've built now, and it's not just me, my uh, colleague Helen, with the last couple of years, we have been absolutely grafting together to kind of to make it happen. And all we've actually done is a lot of kind of DIY, building studio spaces, and everything's a little rough around the edges. But because of that, it's affordable. So the first thing is people don't have this barrier to access a space where they can come and work and can socialize and meet other people. Um, but second of all, we're all kind of weirdos. So, we've created a co-working, a kind of community-driven co-working space where I think people can just be themselves. And I think we definitely have a more of a neurodivergent like focus when it comes to who we want to come in and join the space. It's not, you don't have to be neurodivergent to come to Wild and Kind and to work with us and to be a part of the community. But we've just kind of found naturally,
People like that gravitate towards you.
yeah. And I think a lot of it is because of that low, it's the opposite of corporate. Everything, like I said, we've kind of built ourselves. And I think for a lot of people, that feels comfortable, but feels like you can come in and be yourself. You're not worried about accidentally ruining a rug that's, or like knocking over something, I don't know, priceless vase. But I don't see any of those around here. But yeah, I think it's just born from authenticity. And so people, relate really well to that. And I think another thing as well is kind of community facilitation, because and this is nothing against other co-working spaces, because different people need different things. But I think for us, there's one of us is there all day, every day, and the space is small. So there's somebody there to introduce a new person, facilitate conversation. We make a lunch for everybody every day. You can come, absolutely. Sometimes we'll have, like today we had baked potatoes, and it's just your a typical lunchy lunch. It's nothing fancy. But it means people, they kind of down tools and everybody stops and has a chat. And then everybody kind of gets back to work again. I just think it's all those little things that are just real life. It's real what actually happens in communities rather than, again, nothing against corporate spaces, but corporate spaces are very, very corporate and they're very businessy. And so people walk in and they're like, okay, we've got to be businessy when we're in here. But you come into our space and actually you're just like, oh, I can actually just kind of relax a wee bit, and somebody's, there's, I can just go make myself a cup of coffee. So it's just, I think it's from being authentic and just kind of being needs led rather than aesthetics led, or what we interpret people to need in kind of workspaces led. It's just kind of what people say, like, oh, this would be nice. It's like, oh, okay, let's try and figure it out. And like the other day, somebody made a comment on the lights being very bright, just because in most workspaces you've got overhead lights. There's not much you can do about it. So I was like, okay, I've gone to IKEA and I'm going to make a canopy just over a couple of the desks, and it can be moved out of the way if needed. But it's just a couple of desks then where if somebody's light sensitive, they can go and sit. So it's just little touches like that I think make people feel appreciated and listened to. I haven't actually finished this canopy yet. I'm going to finish it next week. But it's things like that that make people feel, oh, this space isn't for me, not, oh, I'm the customer of this space and I'm here for somebody to make money from me. Yeah.
Do you have a sleeping pod?
I love one though.
Do you have a bean bag that I can lie down.
No, but again, that would be very cool. I mean, we're very small. Like I said,
Okay.
we're 2,000 square foot, but about 3/4 of that is studio spaces. So our actual co-working room's only 500 square foot. So we're teeny at the moment. However, we do have an opportunity to potentially level up next year
Oh,
into a much bigger building that hasn't been built yet and hasn't started being built yet. So we're not getting our hopes up until it actually exists. But if that goes to plan, then we could be looking at, kind of increasing to a 6,000 square foot space.
wow, from 3,000 to
From
6,000.
2,000 to 6,000.
3,000 to
And if all goes to plan, it would mean we would have some more event space and things like that, rather than just being the co-working space that we are just now.
I'm tracking your movement.
Just follow us.
From 300 to 2,000.
Yeah.
Now to 6,000. That's pretty.
Fingers
sharp.
crossed. Yeah. I think as well, like we love the space we're in just now. It's an older building with big windows,
Oh, no.
great for creatives. The one issue we have with it just now is we don't have a main door. We have a main door, but we just don't have a main door into the street. So we're in a building with other businesses, and we want that main door. We want that people to see us from the street kind of presence and be like, oh, okay, I'm in the right place right now. And we're in a business complex. It can be a bit harder for people to find us. So that's the goal, is having that main door. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Being seen from the street. Yeah.
Probably, but this time next year, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
This time.
We'll see. Yeah.
If you are watching maybe 2026 next year, it should be done.
It's good to watch back in these things as well. Be like, oh yeah, I did actually say then, and look at us now, we've done it.
That would be nice.